Welcome to this week's edition of Outdoors Online, a weekly webcast produced by the North Dakota Game and Fish Department. I'm your host, Tom Jensen. My guest this week is Mike Szymanski. Mike is the head waterfowl biologist for Game and Fish. We're going to talk about the spring snow goose season that's currently open. Actually, Mike, I guess to be correct, it is not a season, it's a conservation order.
That's right, Tom. It is actually a conservation order. We're hunting these birds outside of migratory bird treaty dates and federal frameworks for regular waterfowl season. So 1999 was the first year that we were given the opportunity by Congress actually to partake in a conservation order that they enacted.
It's to reduce the populations. Why do the populations need to be reduced?
Well, in some parts of the Arctic where they nest and breed and rear their young, they're having some pretty detrimental impacts to the ends of which we're not sure the habitat can recover. It's such a slow-moving environment up there with a very narrow growing season that once the birds go through and feed by grubbing and digging up bottom parts of plants and basically exposing bare soil, it takes a long time for those habitats to recover.
When does the conservation season start? As we mentioned, it's open now, which seems kind of funny. It's the end of February, and how long does it run?
Sure. For us, we open it up February 20th, and we run it through this year, May 15th. And it's kind of, people look at it as sort of being the extremes on the ends, and it really is. We're opening early just because we can. We're not limited by days, and we want to make sure that we're open just in case some birds do show up.
People should understand that these dates do not count against the federal framework that we do during the fall seasons.
That's correct. Since it's a conservation order, we are totally outside of those framework days. So we have the flexibility to do what we want, but there's no sense really in opening in January.
Sure.
But we figure, well, maybe the end of February there is a chance.
The weather, of course, plays a big part in when the snow geese arrive in North Dakota. There's a snow line normally, and they stop. They follow the snow line up and things. This year now, with the lack of snow and the mild temperatures, who knows when these birds might show up?
Yeah, it's kind of a twofold deal with the duration and timing of the snow goose migration, with it being fairly dry and early this year with lack of snow cover. The birds are likely going to show up quite a bit earlier than normal, but they're probably not going to stay very long either. We don't have much meltwater for the birds to roost in. They like hanging out on kind of shallow water out in the middle of fields. Sheet water, I guess, is what it typically is. We really don't have much of that this year, so birds are going to be pressing on into the northern reaches where they actually hit a good snow line and can find some of that.
Mike, there's a flight path that they normally follow during the fall when they migrate. Do they follow that same path in the spring?
It's not necessarily the same. In the fall, they're coming down, they're staging throughout the central part of the state, and then skipping on out. And frankly, in the fall, we're getting skipped a lot more than we used to, so we don't really have a traditional staging area. In the spring, they're really coming up the James River lowlands that are, I guess if you look on a map and see Highway 281 coming in the state in the southeast part of the state, and then coming up north and then kind of angling over. That's really kind of the path that they're following. The James River lowlands are a fairly defined area in the state that runs north until about the interstate, and then it starts to spread out into the drift prairie. And the geese really do follow that kind of narrow path north and then start fanning out, heading north and then also northwest throughout the drift prairie and the edges of the Missouri Coteau.
Do hunters that pursue the spring snow geese, they use the same techniques as they do in the fall?
It's generally the same methods, although hunting in the spring, it's a lot more difficult to get out into fields. We really discourage people from just going out into fields, whether they're using four-wheelers or trucks. Yeah, I mean, you need to talk to the landowner first to make sure that they really understand what you're doing, because you could be rutting some stuff up. Even with a four-wheeler, they need to know that you're going out there and it's muddy and you're going to try to do your best not to rut things out. But otherwise the techniques are fairly similar. You can employ large decoy spreads or pass shooting. Some people like to sneak geese. They all have their situation when they work better than others, but of course in the spring we do have a couple other opportunities available to us that aren't available during regular waterfowl hunting seasons, where we can use electronic calls and unplug shotguns, and the electronic calls are really important when setting out the decoy spreads.
We have some licensing, not really changes, I guess. They've been around for a little while, but people need to understand.
Yeah, our conservation order, and in most years the hunting opportunity where the geese are actually around, does overlap our license changeover from year to year. So residents can use their previous year's license up until April 1st. Starting April 1st, they have to have their new 2016 hunting license. Regardless of what hunting license they're using, regardless if you're a resident or a non-resident, you need to HIP register for the state of North Dakota for the 2016 season. And then that HIP registration will carry through until your fall hunting, if you're going to do that too in the state. And then, of course, we have a special non-resident $50 license that can be purchased, and that's good for before or after that normal resident license changeover date. And that license is good for non-residents in the spring, and it doesn't count against any days they have in the fall.
There were anecdotal reports already of geese moving into parts of Missouri, some geese in the rainwater basin in Nebraska already.
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely an early year. I mean, no two ways around it. You could get a great big snowfall that kind of resets everything and changes everything too, because we're so dry right now. We're going to have some difficulty staging birds unless some larger wetlands start opening up, which they certainly could. We didn't have much ice this year. But a big snowfall like that really could turn things around. So, I mean, people definitely need to keep their eyes open as to what the weather's doing and how that might change things, because the birds will creep up.
All right, Mike, thanks. The Game and Fish Department has a phone hotline to give you information on movement of spring snow geese. The number is 328-3697. The Snow Goose hotline will give you general information on light geese when they start moving in or near North Dakota. It is not meant as a guide service and will not give specific locations of flocks of geese, but will give you a good idea of counties or general locations of geese. Again, the number is 328-3697. For Mike Szymanski and the rest of the staff here at North Dakota Game and Fish, thanks for joining us for Outdoors Online. We'll see you again next week.